If you asked people one thing that has made Nightwish stand out from the crowd, many would say that it's their great singers. A lot of people, sometimes depending on what era you came in on, or your preference in the style of music that the band do, will have a different favourite for different reasons. I thought it would be interesting to go through their three singers and to talk about their strengths and weaknesses, before ending with who is my personal favourite singer that they have had. To be clear, this is not a video about my favourite albums by the band, or my favourite eras or whatever, but purely on them as singers. And also, I will not be treating them in a vacuum, but instead judging them on how I think they fit into their era of the band, and the musical styles that the band were playing with them when they were in the band. So, without further ado, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, as we go on to our first singer, Tarja Turunen. Before we get into anything else, I just want to apologise in advance for how many times I will mispronounce names during this video, as it's gonna happen no matter how much I've tried not to. Tarja was a founding member of the band, and probably their most well-known singer, as well as probably the most loved among die-hard Nightwish fans as far as I've seen. She had been singing since a very young age, with her talents being spotted at age 3 when she sang at her church, and she had had singing lessons ever since. She studied music and went to art school for a lot of her education, and her voice would just get better and better as she got more experienced, getting a lot more powerful. Her voice was also so dramatic and powerful that the band had to change from being an acoustic band to a metal band early on in their life, as they felt it worked better around her voice early on. The band would sign to Spine Farm Records and would release their debut album in 1997, when Tarja was only 20, and her voice was phenomenal right from the start. Out of all three of their singers we'll be talking about in the video, she has by far the largest octave range, with it only being rivaled by Floor, and the most classically trained voice. This can be heard right from the debut with her beautiful operatic voice on songs like Beauty and the Beast. This style would mostly stick through their next two albums, Oceanborn, my personal favourite, and Wishmaster. These albums contain complex arrangements that Tarja's voice works really well on. Her voice can be a bit one note, mostly sticking to the same beautiful operatic voice that got her to be so well known, which I have seen some fans say can get a bit much at points on the first three albums. However, I personally don't mind it as much because they do a lot of things with her voice on the early albums. However, the main reason I think that she works so well during this era, the band, specifically, is that I think she was able to make all the drama and bombast of their music just be turned up to 11. This can be heard especially on The Pharaoh Sells to Orion, which is probably my favourite vocal performance she would ever do, where she contrasts well with the gruffer male vocals and makes the song my favourite from the band with how much she adds to the emotion and bombast. For the next two albums, the band would start to go in a more commercial and straightforward direction. While I do still like and even love Tarja's voice in a lot of these songs, I do think that her lack of grit or any kind of intensity in her voice a lot of the time does mean that these types of songs are done a lot better by another singer who we will get to in a little bit. I do think that this problem was first heard on their cover of Over the Hills and Far Away, which, while I still really like it, I do think that her delivery kinda misses the mark on where I love the Gary Moore original so much, with how little intensity there is in her vocals a lot of the time. But I still do think that she sounds great on here, just that she doesn't sound particularly like she fits on these kind of songs. On these albums, however, there are plenty of songs that do fit her voice, such as their cover of Phantom of the Opera from Century Child, and some of the more epic sounding songs on Once, such as Dark Chest of Wonders and Nemo. However, After once, and a hell of a lot of drama I won't be getting into in this video, Tarja would be ousted from the band due to a multitude of reasons, and the band would get a new singer. Tumas, the band's leader, was said to have known that they had to get a different kind of singer to replace Tarja, as it would be impossible to get someone to sing the same style as her at the same quality. After a lot of demo tapes were sent to the band, they would settle on ex-Elysion Avenue lead singer Anette Olzon. In comparison to Tarja, Anette had a much different voice. She had a more pop-tinged voice, and while her range may not be as good as Tarja's, she makes up for it with the intensity of her voice, and the way that she can make songs just a lot more digestible, and she doesn't wear on me as much as Tarja sometimes can with her always singing in an upper register. And I think that, personally, Anette is able to use her lower register a lot better. She, at least in my opinion, really works for the style that this band were in when she joined the band, as her vocals on Dark Passion Play are, for me, as good as Tarja's were on Oceanborn. Hear me out. Yes, Tarja's vocals are technically better on Oceanborn, and are a lot more impressive. I think that on both these albums their vocalists perfectly fit. Anette is perfect for this band when they are doing a slightly more straight ahead pop sound, and it can be heard all over this album where I absolutely love her voice. She has so much swagger that just makes her so enjoyable to listen to on this album, and she really is the cherry on top for me of why this album is one of my favourites by them. Songs like Bye Bye Beautiful and Amaranth are turned up to 100 with her vocals, as she perfectly fits in here. She also, for me at least, does pretty well with the more epic stuff on both this album and the next. The first song on Dark Passion Play, The Poet and the Pendulum, perfectly shows this. She can help the song have a much more epic feel than it needs to. Also, while I am not a fan of the second album she is on, Imagineerum, I do think that her vocals are the best part on it. I think that she really suits the somewhat more epic feel that this album has, and while I do prefer her on the band's more pop-edged material, I would be lying if I said she didn't have some drop-dead gorgeous vocals on here. Turn Loose the Mermaids especially is probably my favourite vocal she would ever do for this band, and I love how she sounds on this folky song. She has a great sense of wonder to her in it, and I think that without her vocals, this song wouldn't work for me as well as it ends up doing. I think that, throughout her tenure, Anette showed herself as a very good replacement for Tarja, not being anything like her really with the vocal style, but instead being more of a pop singer. It really works with the albums she sings on. She got really unfairly treated by both the band, but especially the fans during this time that she was in the band, and I think she deserved a whole lot better considering she did a great job on the albums she recorded on. She was perfect for this era for the band, but unfortunately, just like Tarja, another messy split would happen, and Floor Jansen would be brought into the fold, coming from the bands After Forever and Revamp. For most people, Floor Jansen was the perfect replacement for Anette into this band, and I would be inclined to agree. She is somewhat in the middle of both singers, able to do a lot of the high and operatic stuff, while also being able to do a lot of the more catchy poppy things. However, I have a couple issues with her in the band, and a lot of them come from the missed potential that came with her joining the band. This is because Floor is not only known for having a beautiful operatic voice, just like the last two singers, but is also known for her intensity. This can be heard with her last band, Revamp, quite a lot, with her ability to go from the beautiful clean singing to having a good rasp very quickly, and making the music very interesting. The song Here's My Hell is a perfect example of this, especially when they would play it live.
I wish that Nightwish had incorporated this more into the actual Nightwish music, as I feel like would not only have helped differentiate Floor from the past two singers, but could also have made the band's music a lot more dynamic and exciting. They let her do this on a couple songs, such as Tribal from Human to Nature, but I wish they had done it more. With Floor, and this is my second issue, I find the band are playing it very safe with her and not letting her have as much personality as she should, at least compared to their past two singers. While technically amazing, I find that she doesn't leave a mark with her vocals as much as the past two singers often did, and I don't think she stands out as much on the albums that she sings on. An example of this for me is Elaine off her first album with the band, Endless Forms Most Beautiful, where I feel the chorus would either be operatic and bombastic with Tarja, or catchy and infectious with Anette. I feel like Floor hits this weird middle ground where it just comes off as somewhat anticlimactic. I do think that she has made more of a mark on the band as she has gone on, however. With her singing on the newest album, while having similar issues, they aren't anywhere near as bad as they were on previous albums for me. The album opener, An Ocean of Strange Mechanisms, shows her voice taking a change, which is what I want to hear from her in the band, and it makes it one of the best Nightwish songs in quite a long while. Overall, I don't dislike Floor in the slightest. In fact, I really love her voice. It's just that after the last two singers seem to leave a stamp of their own personality on this band, I feel like she has not been allowed to, which kinda makes sense considering the state this band have been in for the past 10 years or so, with Tumas being very controlling of everything. But before we come to the end of the video, I'm going to summarise my thoughts on the singers, and then come away with who I think is personally the best fit for the band. If it wasn't clear already, I think that all the singers that this band have had are absolutely incredible. I think they all do a great job and have some very impressive vocals, but which one fits the band best for me? At least, for me, this is between the first two singers, as while I do love Floor, I think I've made it clear that I don't think she's been used to her full potential while in this band, which is kinda sad to see. However, choosing my favourite between the other two is extremely difficult. They are both very different and I like them both for very different reasons, but if I had to make a decision, I'd probably go against the popular opinion and say that Anette is my favourite. I absolutely love her voice and think that, especially on Dark Passion Play, but also on Imaginarium, she's just able to add to the music so much for me. Well, yes, I love Tarja, and probably would say that her performance on Oceanborn is my favourite vocal performance on a Nightwish album. There is something about Annette's voice that has always just a bit more of a connection with me. I also think that she really works well whenever she sings with Marco on songs like Bye Bye Beautiful, contrasting very well with his gruff voice. She has her issues, sure, and if I'm going the best singer that this band have had in a vacuum, it would easily be Tarja. As much as I love Anette, her main issue in the band was that she struggled to sing the Tarja stuff live, due to just how impressive it was and how out of her range it was. And if you want to watch a Nightwish live show, I do think that the end of an era show with Tarja is when this band was at their natural peak, before the infighting and egos would start to cause the band to break down a bit. I also think this is a very good time to say that Floor is probably the best person to be in the band right now, at least in a live sense. In a lot of the videos I've seen, she's able to perfectly sing both the Tarja and the Anette stuff very well. And with their last album showing a stark improvement for me, I really hope that if she does stay in the band, they continue in this direction. In conclusion, while Anette is my favourite singer for the era she was in, I love all three singers they've had, and I think that they are easily the thing that make this band as memorable and enjoyable as they are. And without any of them, they would be a much lesser band and have so much less personality. But what do you think? What's your favourite Nightwish singer? And what's your favourite album by them? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Follow my Insta, Twitter and Blue Sky. And follow my Album of the Year page for all my latest reviews. All the links are in the description below. But with that, stay safe, stay happy, and stay metal!